Once again, very, very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Manu, and I extend a very warm welcome to you all to the second edition of the Battery Show India 2024 by Informa Markets. As we are witnessing a lot of intellectually enriching presentations and sessions and panel discussions here today, in line with that is our next session, which is again a panel discussion, which is powered by Battery Associates. The topic of the discussion would be India's path to clean energy, sustainable strategies for boosting the energy storage sector. Discussion points would be current landscape of energy storage in India, overview of existing technologies, key market players, and comparison with global trends. Technological innovations and advances, the role of research and development in battery manufacturing in driving innovation in BESS. Policy and regulation, current policies affecting the sector, needed policy changes, incentives, and subsidies. Investment and financing, investment opportunities and financing models, public-private partnership. So to take the discussion forward, without any further ado, let me invite on stage our esteemed moderator, none other than Dr. Simon Engeke. He's the founder and chair, Battery Associates. A huge round of applause for Dr. Simon, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. Use those hands. Let yourself get charged up. Thank you. The first panelist that I would request to join Dr. Simon here is Mr. Debmalya Sen, India Lead World Economic Forum. The next panelist that I would like to invite on stage is the pretty Miss Phoebe O'Hare, or O'Hara. Is that correct? All right then. She's Energy Storage Lead Analyst at Fast Markets. A huge round of applause for the lady here. Thank you. The next panelist that I would like to call upon stage is Mr. Bharat Venkatesan, Partnerships Lead Analyst at Battery Associates. A huge round of applause for Mr. Bharat here. And last but not the least, our sweet Dr. Kyle De Silva, who's the Global Clean Energy Director at Thermo Fisher Scientific. A huge round of applause for Dr. Kyle, ladies and gentlemen. Now, without taking up any more of your time, let me hand over the baton of the session to our moderator, Dr. Simon here. The stage is all yours, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I think we have a really exciting discussion ahead of us, and I think we have a really fantastic panel to guide us through this discussion. So as you can see in the title, it is about India's path to clean energy, sustainable strategies for boosting the energy storage sector, I think, which is a very fitting topic. We already had many good discussions and CEO roundtables, CTO roundtables, and many great presentations over the last 2 days. And I think that's a great setting for the discussion we want to have today. To kind of give you a bit of an outlook of what we want to do today, we want to start with where we are right now. And it's going to be a presentation by Deb to really give us a nice overview of the Indian landscape. Afterwards, we want to look a bit more in the future, looking a bit of at forecasts with Phoebe. I know it's something she spends a lot of her time on, also, of course, from an ESS perspective, but also in the other markets, specifically again for India. Then also as Bharat, we want to think a bit more about some of the financial topics, especially from an OPEX and CAPEX, but also from a gigafactory profitability standpoint, a big challenge we also can see for this market. Then also with Carl, you want to understand a bit better what is kind of happening, especially from an equipment provider perspective, and really how can you support the market to really make this a great transition, which we are here to support. With this, I would like to start with Deb. If you could kick us off of an overview of the India market. Thank you.
Hello. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Simon, for having me here. Okay, a difficult session, I know, straight after lunch, but I will try my best. So, giving you an overview about where we are, what are the targets, what's happening in the market, and what do we see going forward. The targets are huge for us. If India has to achieve 500 gigawatts from non-fossil fuel sources of energy by 2030, it is estimated that the grid will require around 42 gigawatts of battery storage for 5-hour duration, along with another 19 gigawatts of pumped hydro. If we look into the cumulative investment required just from 2027 to 2032, it comes out to 368 billion, which is quite a big number. Now, to do this, there has been multiple policy enablers which has been brought upon by the government, not only on the demand side, but also on the supply side. On the demand side, the government has set across energy storage obligations. It has set across a national framework for energy storage, and which also recommends a particular percentage of energy storage in all future renewable energy tenders. The government has also brought in a viability gap funding to bring down the cost in accelerated manner, and also enabled battery participation across the value stream. Now, this is not only on the demand side, but also on the supply side. To secure supply, the government has also brought out its own production-linked incentive scheme through which they are incentivizing local manufacturing in India, along with also securing metal and metal supply chain. If I look into this figure, and this changes every day, right? From 2018 to where we are in 2024, 74 tenders has been issued, out of which around 6 are operational, 10 is under execution as we talk, 18 are in open stage of tendering. Now, just to show you the increase, if you look into 25, the entire 2023, we had 25 tenders. Today, as we stand on 4th of October, we already have 24 tenders issued till date. If I convert these numbers to capacities, you find 108 gigawatt hour worth of energy storage tenders has been issued, out of which 35 is under execution, 211 megawatt hours is installed, very small number, but the pipeline is really huge. If I look into 2023 to 2024 Y to D, it says 1.6x times of the total, tendered capacity has already been done in 2024. We have 3 good months left with us. Now, if I dissect this 108 gigawatt hours, you will find battery storage at around 16, pumped hydro at around 79, and agnostic around 13. Now, if we look into this tender landscape, you will find various varieties of tenders coming out. It has been standalone, it has been renewables along coupled with energy storage, and it has also been solar with storage, which has come up. The numbers that actually tells you how standalone batteries and solar plus storage has been the clear favorites across all the other categories. As of today, 40 gigawatt hour of open capacity is there tendered out in the market. Of course, this includes battery storage as well as pumped hydro. Let's look into specifically battery storage. 16 gigawatt hour of tenders has been issued, out of which 8 gigawatt hour at present is open. If we look into what's under execution is around 1.8 gigawatt hours, awarded is around 4.5, and under tendering stage is around 4.7.6. What has been the predominant use case? We find maximum of these tenders being used for peak shifting kind of applications, followed by DG offset, diesel generator offset, followed by a bit of ancillary and RTC. A majority of them following the build, own, operate kind of business model. Now, something to note about here is out of the 16 gigawatt hour of tenders issued, 13 gigawatt hours just came in 2024 alone, right? So that's a huge number. But there has been some challenges. What has been these challenges? This list here shows you a number of tenders which has been awarded. That means tenders in which prices has been discovered. Look into these ones which I'm highlighting here. It says that while it has been awarded, it has not yet found a buyer. It's almost 1 year from that being awarded. So this has been one of the challenges, but the bigger challenge is the ones which I'm circling now. being awarded and then getting cancelled. That has been in a few of these categories, predominantly in the early days. We see this occurrence much lower at present. This shows you the graph of just the one category of tenders, that is firm and dispatchable renewables, where we couple renewables with storage at a very high availability metric. Around 16.4 gigawatt of such tenders has been issued. And the price discoveries, if you see, has seen a downward trend all across, be it FDRE, be it other categories of tenders. So we have seen a decrease in cost all through. Now this shows you the standalone market, and just see how the graph has just shooted up over the last 2 years. It was a very small market even in 2023, 2024 alone. Till date, we have around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tenders that has been issued. Now, if you look into multiple of these tenders has also been closed. The green one shows you which has been closed. If we look into the earlier stages, we find some cancellations, but now this looks much more healthier as a business case. And this has been the reason. The drop in cost. In 2 years, standalone tenders have seen a drop of 66%. The last one just came yesterday from MSEDCL, a 300 megawatt, 500 megawatt hour tender, which is seeing a cost discovery of around 3.64. Remember, one cycle. So it's almost competing with all these which were of 2 cycle operations. So the drop has been huge, and that is why you find an influx of standalone battery storage tenders coming into this market. But it's not that the other categories won't come. You will find a combination of FDRE, standalone, and solar plus storage tenders coming up in the days. So yes, the market has just opened up. Opportunities are huge. What we just need to do is act upon it, and act upon it in a sustainable manner. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb. And I think this is really exciting data, and I think it shows also the lot of developments which have happened really recently. Right? I think the growth, especially the recent growth, is very exciting. But now we have looked a bit on where we kind of come from, where how we got where we are right now. Now maybe Phoebe, if you could share a bit more about what are we looking for in the future? What are some of your forecasts? But also looking at chemistry and beyond.
Yeah, definitely. Great to meet you all. My name's Phoebe O'Hara. I'm from Fast Markets. We're predominantly a price reporting agency, so we have the benchmark in lithium, but I also sit on the battery team where we do forecasting and analytics and consulting. In the terms of energy storage systems in India, I am probably scarily bullish. I ran my numbers by Dev yesterday, and he said that's a big number for 2034. We're forecasting for 2034 an annual installation of 54 gigawatt hours. So that's going to be up from 0.2 to 0.3 gigawatt hours this year. The reason we're really bullish on that is kind of similar to what Deb just showed. India's got this really brilliant conflation of government support, so a lot of carrots, a lot of incentives, but also the massive decarbonization efforts going on as well, a lot of sticks. So the market's got a really big push from either side to grow storage. I think from our expert area as well, we do cell cost modeling for all lithium-ion batteries. And we've seen a fall this year of maximum, in some cases, 40% in cell costs. And what that's doing for CapEx for ESS projects is absolutely massive, to the point where some of our clients in this market come to us slightly overwhelmed at the low cost for storage cells that they're seeing. And I think there's a part B conversation we can have later about safety assurances and quality testing that's going to be a bit of an issue for this market, and I think we need to talk about it as much as possible, and you and I spoke about that yesterday. For chemistry, it's just a quick overview. So our forecast is that lithium-ion is going to make up 98% of electrochemical storage in this market, and LFP is going to make up 85% minimum. That's following a kind of broad global spec of what we're seeing. LFP is running king because of how cost affordable it is. NCM in a storage project is around 25 to 30% more expensive, and energy density just doesn't really matter in a storage project. So that's our kind of view for storage. Happy to talk about EVs and everything else later.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Phoebe. And I think these are some good start for discussions later on as well. Now I would like to go to you, Bharath, and talk a bit about, now when we want to make this happen, especially from a manufacturing standpoint, what are some of the CapEx and OpEx consideration for these gigafactories, their profitability as well?
Right,
So-
before Bharath, you start answering that question, just one request, please everyone, like Phoebe did, hold your mics like that. These are hand mics. If you keep it like that, people won't be able to hear clearly what you're telling them. So to make sure that your message is delivered loud and clear, the mics like this, please. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Please carry on.
So in terms of gigafactory and also profitability of the gigafactory, we have been touring gigafactories in China. It's all about you want to have a scale in the gigafactory to achieve certain price points. Usually in gigafactory, the margins are not that really great. If you are just going to manufacture only cells in India, that is going to be a very, very tough business unless you have products in the upper line. Let's say you are manufacturing packs for your EVs, or you are manufacturing big systems for applications, and the demand which forecasted by Dev is really remarkable. We have this much demand, but literally there is, let's say, very less or zero production of cell manufacturing capacities. In India, we almost import 100% of sales from our players in the industry. So when we talk about gigafactory commercials, the percentage, the net margins are around 3 to 5% for some facilities in China. There are even facilities running around 1%. So the margin is very, very less. When we talk about even very big companies like CATL, their EBITDA is around 12%. So India as a country, as an emerging market, we need businesses which are high EBITDA. We need business which has high revenue. That means you also want to work on developing technologies in the pack level, in the best level. Then only you can make profit out of it. So these are all important parameters in the business. You want to make sure that you want to have this necessary capacities. Someone is whistling. It seems like they like my talk. So this is what the capabilities we need in the country. That means without that, we can't move forward. So this is in terms of gigafactory experience, what we had in China.
Thanks for this, Bharath. And I think now if you want to go to you, Kyle, and kind of talk a bit about from an equipment perspective, right? So now we heard, on the one hand, we have gotten quite far in a quick time. There's been a big ramp up. There's really lofty, big, ambitious goals Phoebe has been sharing. Bharath is now sharing it's actually quite tricky to make this work, also financially, like from a profitability standpoint. But now you actually have to build it and put the tools together. And I know your company is working on that. So maybe you could share a bit your perspective on how to make this work from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah. Can you hear? Okay. Thank you, Simon. So if we're going to achieve profitability, we have to get to scale. And if we want to get to scale, we have to achieve quality in the production. What we see is a lot of new entrants to the cell manufacturing process are struggling with quality. And consequently, they can't deliver the level of price competitivity that they need to achieve for energy storage projects. So we do see a significant increase in the wish to improve quality systems, the wish to increase the level of innovation in metrology and in QC testing, so that customers are more confident about the product that they're creating. We are aware that there is a glut of batteries on the market at the moment for BES projects, but there is definitely some quality and safety issues associated with some of those processes in terms of how they've been manufactured.
Excellent. I think that's also something in the discussion ahead of this panel. We are talking about the topic of safety, that this is really crucial, right? And here we're looking at sustainable strategies. And to make something sustainable, it has to be safe, because you want a long-term adoption from the user. You might can flood the market with cheap products, but then if people don't feel safe and don't want to use them over time, it's a big challenge. We have seen something similar also in the US market, in the European market. For example, in the US, I'm aware of hundreds of projects, especially on the BESS side, which got canceled because of community protests. People were worried about the safety, didn't want these batteries in their proximity. This has been a big issue there. So maybe if you could share a bit about some of the opportunities and approaches, how to really ensure safety in this growing market.
Wow, it's a very, very challenging question. So safety is inherent from the cell choice, the chemistries that could be chosen. So there are some chemistries that are inherently safer. The market's moving and pivoting, certainly for high density or energy density applications, to electrolyte or volatile electrolyte-free cells that inherently improves the safety over time. But for energy storage, we're seeing more of a pivot towards sodium. There's a lot of interest in sodium-based cells, and what we'll see is a movement towards novel chemistries in the future. And we'll also see a movement towards manufacturing processes with safety baked into the process. So at every stage, from materials selection through to each step in the manufacturing process, to ensure that the cells that leave are as robustly tested as possible when they exit the factory.
Any other thoughts on the panel?
Yeah, on sodium, I think it's a really exciting opportunity for safety. I think there are some things, though, that people maybe don't think about with sodium that do present other issues. Like currently, it's a hard carbon anode, and that presents issues around sustainability. So while you might get an increase in safety, if you're looking at your ESG requirements as an investor or financer, that's going to present a new issue. Over at least the near term as well, the lack of economies of scale for sodium mean that we've costed it out as being at least 60% more expensive than an LFP. So right now, when you see in the media people saying sodium's more cheap than LFP, that's not true. The things being made in the market right now are more expensive because they haven't reached economies of scale. The other problem is people say, oh, soda ash is everywhere. It's all refined in China. So it has the same issues in supply chain as lithium, and that is not going to be ameliorated in the short term. So it's this fascinating play up with all of these batteries where you have some benefits presented for safety, similar with vanadium, a lot of safety opportunities there too, but the supply chains are rigged with the same complexities that lithium also holds. And I think that we need to have a kind of nuanced conversation about that.
Any other thoughts, Bharat?
Maybe in terms of the chemistries, when we're talking about sodium ion chemistry, LFP chemistry, NMC chemistry, developing countries like India, Indonesia, Philippines, we are very cost sensitive economies. We want chemistries which work for our per capita income. We want to work with those kind of numbers. And also we have visited China many times. So in that context, now the sodium ion is very costly comparing to that of the LFP. The idea is that the sodium ion will be in and around less than 30% less than the ideal LFP cell. That is what they have been telling about. That is what idea. But that, as Phoebe rightly mentioned, we want to develop the supply chain at a scale to achieve that cost point. Then we want to also consider what all the parameters will fit in. And that's also one problem. Keep on the LFP price is getting reduced. It's falling down and down and down. For example, in the last 1 year, the price got reduced by half. And we are not sure how many price is going to get reduced in the future. It's also a part of production, overproduction in China, but it's not only the overproduction, but also they are increasing the efficiency in cell. That's also increasing sometimes the margins are not that great, but still the cell cost is getting reduced. If sodium want to survive, sodium want to have some kind of business case, they also want to compete with lithium. Of course, there is a safety aspect to it. It has its overhand on the safety aspect, but lithium is also going to contribute and compete with the sodium. We want to see how the price point work in the near future for sodium to survive in the market as well.
Sorry, just to add a little bit. Something for all of you. You can all become forecasters today. The only way that sodium is going to work for most projects is if it is on the same cost as lithium ion cells. Right now, you can track lithium prices using fast markets or any other forecast provider, but obviously you want to choose us. When you see lithium prices go up, you're going to see a surge in sodium interest. So we're seeing that in about 2028. So sodium as of 2028 most likely is when it's going to come back to the market and potentially be more cost effective. So you can all be forecasters for the day and start tracking lithium prices and work out when sodium's going to come back using that metric. But that's normally what we look at when we try and work out when sodium's going to be really popular.
Thank you. Anything you want to add, Deb? Or
I think, yes, what Kailash, she said at the end, right? sodium's market will be highly influenced by how lithium performs. If lithium's price is decreasing, and what we discount here is that lithium ion itself is also innovating in this journey, right? You have LFP coming up with LMFP, and then this whole innovation coming up in the anode front. I think it will be highly influenced by how lithium performs as a chemistry.
Brilliant. I hope this gives a bit more clarity on the topic of chemistry, which of course is one of the sustainable strategies you have to do when you want to boost the Indian energy storage sector. Now I'd like to talk a bit about more from a business case perspective, because the Indian market is quite unique in some way. If you look at how BESS is used and how you can make money with BESS, maybe if you could share a bit more the current perspective and maybe what could be done to improve that.
So if you look into how, and as I showed you in the pie chart, that 74% of all our installations has been targeted to one use case, that is peak shifting, followed by a bit of DG offset, but that's not a sizable market. There are multiple tenders there, but not a sizable market. Now, why is this the case? This is opposite to what we see globally, right? Globally, it starts with ancillary market, that market gets saturated, and then you move to this market, right? But India, the first factor, that is the ancillary market, is not that developed. So therefore, you see our use cases directly starting with energy kind of application, and that is peak shifting. Now, costs have decreased. But if I keep targeting one use case through a person who is ready to give or attack multiple use cases, the asset is never utilized to its optimal level. So I think multi-stacking of revenue lines is essential and important for this industry to go forward. At this levels, I don't think we even need subsidies if that value stacking is defined, right? So I think while we are doing great, that is something what we are missing, and we have to look into how we can value stack benefits from batteries.
Anybody wants to add something?
Yeah. So in terms of best revenue, it is also also work on different environments. Europe has a different energy market, whereas China has a different energy market. In every regions of China, China has a different energy rules and different energy policies as well. So when we visited some facilities in China, building up this best capacities, what they are saying is that their return of investment is very attractive and their IRR is also very attractive. Around 5.5 to 6 to 7 years, they are attracting return of investment from the best systems they are establishing in the US market. And when you talk about IRR, they are telling about 12% to 15% returns in this market. And it's also not in China, they are also doubling down on the expansion and abroad. So China's market is already saturated. It's like a lot of things have been established in China, but still there is growth. But the production of the batteries are mostly focused on abroad markets. And as they've rightly mentioned, we're going to use for only one revenue in India, that's okay. But when we talk about European market, if you want to make more money out of the system, if you want to make more revenue out of the system, it should be used for different use cases. Whereas the policy in India, it need to be updated, it need to be evaluation to the current demand, and also our grids are not that great in terms of EV demand is going high and energy production is going high. So definitely there's need to be a different use case will evolve in India, hopefully in future. Then, but the policy need to support this type of revenue stacking in the best industry. So that is really needed to make some additional revenue there.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add something on this? Otherwise, we can go to the next topic. Okay, then maybe we go to the next topic, which is then looking at more the grid, right? So now we spoke about chemistry, so we all learned sodium ion might have a revival in 2028, so let's keep tracking the prices. Now we also heard about some of the topics of what could help to make it more financially attractive to have multiple use cases for BESS in India. But now also looking maybe a bit more on the grid integration, and also especially with the topic of automotive, which of course is a big also driver for the battery market. So maybe Phoebe, you want to share a bit more about some of your experiences on that, how this could be maybe be accommodated through BESS?
Yeah, definitely. I think the grid in India is really unique. I think typically in other markets, we've actually seen grid being a massive barrier to the growth of storage. The UK is a beautiful example. ESS companies are currently being quoted 2037 for a connection timeline, which is insane. But the difference with India is I actually think the central planning agency, they should be rolled out to every country in the West to help them with their grids. The document and the planning is absolutely stunning. So I actually think, interestingly for India, and where it presents more of an opportunity for storage, is the current build out of grid that's going on. So there's a lot of work with the private sector as well as government to build up local transmission, but also distribution networks. There's a lot of understanding about local renewable energy build out and the need there for bigger and better distribution networks. So in a way, it actually offers a great opportunity. The only thing I would say is that we're already hearing from clients the potential that a lot of the connection queues for renewables are at least 7 or 8 years out now. Substations is becoming more of an issue. So while the grid is very well connected and well developed, we need to see more of an investment and a discussion around the build-up of substations so that renewable energy doesn't get suppressed. Because the problem is that storage here is very correlated with renewables. There isn't a merchant market here like in Europe. So if there's any suppression of renewable build-out, there's going to be a suppression of storage.
Kyle, is there something you wanted to add something on? No. Is there something you wanted to add anything on? No. Or maybe Deb? Okay, great. Because I think that's also, we're talking now a lot about storage, right? And I think I would like to maybe also talk a bit more about the interplay with vehicles, right? Because often, as you just touched on, it's kind of often seen as people look quite separately sometimes at this market, but there's a lot of connection there as well. And I think a lot of the discussion we had now, how important it is to see this as an ecosystem together. I'm not sure if maybe Deb, you want to share something on this, or then maybe Phoebe?
It doesn't. Yeah. So I think, of course, 85% of the demand is just coming from that sector. So, therefore, how the stationary storage demand, if you look into the EV market in India in specific, you will find that we have been leading the market in the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler category, and maybe to some extent the bus, but the main has been the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler, right? And that is where we also see a shift happening from NMC to LFP in that domain also now, right? So I think all this will only help the stationary market also, because if the chemistry is standardized, then you get the help benefit coming down to stationary market. Just to give you an example, this year at least, the rate of growth of the stationary storage demand has been way ahead of the way it has seen the demand growth in EVs. And so much so that many players have now shifted out, or at least adding their offerings in the stationary storage domain. So I think in this kind of scenario, earlier it used to be whatever was left over, it would be passed on to stationary storage. The story has changed in 1 year, I think.
So in terms of Indian EV markets, and the main thing about Indian EV market is the penetration rate is keep on increasing. But unless we bring down the price points in the battery pack level system, then only we can also work on bringing down the cost of electric vehicle as well. So the current cost of electric vehicle for some commercial application, yeah, is very viable. Many companies who are using this food delivery systems, and some delivery companies who are last mile delivery companies who are developing these systems, which is commercially successful for them. Where in terms of the passenger vehicles, it still need to be updated. Still people are using NMC, and LFP and NMC has its own advantages and disadvantages. So definitely India also need to work on in a way to decrease the cost of the pack and also the vehicle. It doesn't mean the cost of cell want to be reduced. So the cost of cell has been constantly reduced for the past 10 years. There is significant amount of cost can be reduced on the pack front as well, in terms of how you develop the pack, how you optimize the pack, how you manufacture the pack inside India, how you optimize the supply chain of the components in the pack in India. That is really important. BMS manufacturing in India, electronics indigenization in India, it's all need to be done in order to reduce the cost of the pack so that you can make an affordable EV. It's not only cells, there is also electronics and other components that EV needs to be manufactured in India to reduce the cost to a certain percentage where larger population can adopt this EV in their day-to-day life.
Can I just say something I found fascinating on this topic? So I've been touring around clients for the last 2 weeks, and all the autos OEMs we've met, two-wheeler and four-wheeler, their EVs are price parity with ICE, which is incredible. We don't have that in Europe. We don't have that in the US. So in a way, this market's even more exciting because that initial problem that other people are trying to solve is already on that parity. So for consumer psychology, that's massive, because that's the main barrier to stopping consumers from buying, because they'll say, oh, well, I've got a petrol car here and it's 20% less. So true, but I think we're already seeing price parity, which is really exciting.
And we have seen how this also has been a massive driver now in China, right? Where 2/3 of the vehicles are cheaper in the EV configuration compared to ICE, and that really pushes the market. And that's maybe also beyond. I would love to, because we talk about strategies, and I think often it's quite helpful to also look at other markets and see some best practices, some of the challenges. And I think today also we have been really nicely, or Deb, you also showed some of the great progress, and also overall, I think the panel has shown some of the progress. Maybe what are some of the things which can be adapted, or maybe been inspired by other markets, how they have been able to boost it, or maybe what are some of the other challenges you have seen in other markets you hope India can overcome in a different or faster way?
I can tell you one thing that we have done beautifully, and that it's something that others can learn from us, is the problem which US faces with interconnection queues, right? Just to get an approval for a project, you need a 18 months or 24 months timeline. You wait for that. If you looked at the graph, you will see, I will give an example of the latest juvenile tender. The tender was conceptualized in December 2023. It was released in March 2024. It was awarded in June 2024. So that has been the timeline from conceptualization to that being awarded. This, I think, India has done beautifully. And this is an example where I feel, as part of World Economic Forum also, we have this initiative called Clean Power and Electrification, where this example we get asked about how is this possible. We have an interconnection queue of around 18 months, 20 months. How are you doing it so beautifully? So I think that is something they have to, India can teach others. Now, something that I think the way of value stacking, which others have actually mastered and they have grown from the power kind of application and come here, is something that we can adopt to and see how we can unentangle this regulatory framework. We have provisions, right? Batteries are allowed to participate in ancillary market, okay? But the provision is there. The implementation has been really slow. So if we can bring that in, I think that can actually spearhead this growth much faster.
Kyle, anything you would like to add to that?
Maybe not a best practice, maybe a cautionary tale. So I think we've seen in other markets companies racing to get to scale and profitability and overstretching themselves, either through overambitious projects or through overdependence on resources or talent that isn't there in the market. So I think as India takes this on, having trained and talented people within the battery factories, having access to suppliers, and having projects that are realistic and achievable is the key to success. You only need to look at the news on a week-to-week basis in Europe to see one or another battery manufacturer or supply chain that is at threat at the moment because of overstretch.
That's also very much going to the light of sustainability, because you want to have it long term versus then a quick ramp up there as well. Bharath, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so all the great stories which we are hearing about the gigafactories and all the nice best establishments made, but nothing is Indian battery. We are just buying it from out. That means we are giving a lot of USD, foreign directed money, directly out of the country. So if you want to hold the value inside the country, you also want to develop a manufacturing ecosystem which supports this kind of equipments or this kind of battery facilities. So when you see abroad, let's divide the regions into American region, European region, and Asian region. We can just exclude China because it's very vast to explain it in a very short span of time. In the American region, they are very simple. They throw money at the problems. They are throwing trillions and billions of money at the problem. So you can really make anything happen in America. When I was in Europe in 2021, I was listening to announcements like companies ramping up in Europe, like every day one announcement will come. I will announce like, how these people have this much money this time? And once the US came into picture and they throw billions at them, and many European companies went to America because they have this financial incentive to go. You manufacture a cell, you have certain amount of money will be paid back, your tax retention is there, and the US Department of Energy throwing millions constantly on developing the supply chain, developing each and every part of the supply chain, which includes cathode, anode, separator, electrolyte, additives, everything that they can do because they have the money. When you come to Europe, Europe is a bit different. They are a bit open to this kind of an approach because the European Union, you can't throw the money at every country because every country has its own GDP and stuff. But Europe is mostly into innovation, how to optimize these processes. But still, Europe has getting a very really tough time. Many premium European companies are still having issues in revenue. Have you seen like company in Europe? There are some companies started. It's like 4 years still now. It's not making any revenue right now. They are still losing a lot of money. That means if you're starting these kind of facilities in India, you want to burn a lot of cash. You want a lot of liquidity. Are we ready to do this? We are very fast money making economy. Let's put it in Zola. Let's put it in some food delivery company. Let's get the revenue in small time. Are we ready to make this larger long-term investments? So these need to be formulated and supported by the schemes like PLI and stuff, but it is also very minimal. The India can do things differently, but the government and also the other parts in the ecosystem should understand and invest in a long-term view. The companies who have made a lot of money from petroleum, who have made a lot of money from clothes, who have made a lot of money from other businesses want to think and invest in this industry to have a security for India for a long time, or else our energy security will always rely on other countries outside our border.
Thank you, Bharat. I'm looking at, we have about 10 minutes left. And also, of course, if there's any questions in the audience, it might be a bit unconventional, but please, also would love to have this as well. So if anybody has any curious questions, happy to get you engaged. Don't be shy, but also otherwise I can keep asking questions. That's not a problem at all.
Ask us something horrible.
So I want to make it a dialogue. So if there's anybody in the audience who has any questions for the panelists, please put your hand up. I'm sure we will find a way to get you speaking here as well. If not, that's not a problem. But keep thinking about it. Would love to get you more engaged there as well.
I just want to make one point here on research and development, right? Last year, 2023, if I tell you that China's investment in R&D on clean tech was 2.5 times global average. Here, that is where China's USP has been. It has been investing so well in R&D, right? And that is why, to a lot of extent, China is where it is, right? If you look into technologies like sodium ion, it was not invented by China. It was invented by the US. And look where China is today on sodium ion. That is what we are trying to go, right? But it's the largest installation of a sodium ion battery is there in China. Vanadium. Where is vanadium coming from? It's again 90% controlled by China. So I think what we forget is China did not become what it has become in a day, but because of a decade of investment that this country has done. And that is how it is. And to be very honest, India cannot afford that much amount of incentives to a particular sector, which US can. India has multiple other problems to address. So I think it has to be also judicially seen how much India can subsidize. But I'm sure the way the factories are coming out without subsidies, it's amazing.
Can I add on to that? I think India is facing a really interesting question on the cell manufacturing side, because there's a lot of incentives from government. But I think, to be blunt, they're not going to, we all know they're not going to, India can't make costs that are comparative to China. That's not possible. It really isn't. What other regions have done is they've created a profile for how their cells differ from China in other ways. So the US has said, actually, with the IRA, we can make cost competitive, and they're US made. It's a very, nationalistic, drummed up conversation. Europe, it's about sustainability. We use renewable energy. These cells are more sustainable. That's what we're offering to consumers. India hasn't quite worked out what that USP is yet. And I think for government, they need to try and create a brand around India-made cells to make them attractive to consumers, because you can't compete on cost, you can't compete on sustainability. What's it going to be? I don't have the answer. That's kind of up to government and producers. But I think that's a really interesting question that they're facing right now.
Maybe I want to add on the innovation part. So the thing is that innovation is really essential when you have a very robust industry. We don't even manufacturing cells. We are talking about solid state batteries. What is my recommendation is LFP battery. There are patents which is already expired. In China, if you go and talk about innovation, of course, they are very innovative in terms of they are spending 4% of their revenue in their innovation. That is huge money. But LFP patents are already expired. Now it's all about process optimization and processing optimization. We need process engineers in India. The people who have here want to optimize the processes. If you optimize the process, if you know run the industry without scrap rate, scrap rates are crazy. It starts with 50%, then it gradually goes to 30%, 20%, 5%. You want to run your gigafactory at 5% scrap rate, or else you can't make the scale out of it. And also when you have the cells are different grades. It's A, B, C, D grade. If you have A grade cells, it's good. B grade cell you can't put in a car. C grade cell you put in different application. And also the commercials and margins are different. EV cell is not that much attractive, whereas consumer application cells are much more attractive. So you want to figure out many aspects of it. The thing about India is that we really want to build this ecosystem inside. That means we want to see what is feasible at the current stage, because in the CEO, CTO conclave, we have been thinking about all these things. We can innovate, but currently innovation is not needed. We need something which can be achievable through process engineering, existing technology. We just want to create cells and put in EVs. Then we can think about innovating, going to the moon and all other things. First we want to walk, then we want to fly, and we want to run. So that's what my suggestion is.
Great, thank you. I think we're getting close to the end. Yeah, before we go there, and I think maybe also one thing on innovation, right, on R&D. I think there's also a lot of innovation in industry, which is, I think, really important. I think also in Europe and other regions, we have done a lot of research and universities, which is also really important. I know Thermo Fisher and others are supporting it heavily, but also really having the innovation also in the industry, I think something China really mastered. And I think that's also something India can do quite well at, to really upscale process, as you mentioned, Bauer, and other approaches there.
Yeah, maybe a comment on that. So there is a foundation of research in Europe and North America. Don't discount China. The universities there are world class, and they've been doing this for decades. But I've been very impressed to see how India is adapting to this challenge. Visiting the IESA organization, seeing how they're working, reaching out both to industry and academic partners globally, visiting the consortia and research agencies that are in UK, in North America, in Michigan places. So that's active. It's coming, and but I think the Indian organizations are looking to tap into the global research, and I think that's a really good and outwardly looking approach.
Yeah, so this is my first time in India, and honestly, just on what Kyle was just saying, I've genuinely been absolutely blown away by the innovation here, but also the energy and the determination to make this work. I think there's something really to be said about the people that you have working on these problems. And I go everywhere with work, but I've truly been outstanded by what I've seen and the people I've met here. And I think that really has something to say about the future of this industry.
No, people are key. I think we all can agree on that. And really building the ecosystems, right? And getting these different stakeholders together. And again, this being an amazing platform, even though we maybe don't have as many questions, but maybe you meet some other fellow battery enthusiasts next to you can collaborate with. Before we kind of wrap it up, I would love to kind of maybe get your final thoughts, each of you, on some of the challenges and opportunities you see for this market, really to making India a leader also in sustainable strategies, but also a leader in energy storage, in the energy storage sector. Maybe we can go down the line. Maybe Kyle, you can start, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, maybe slightly controversial. So I definitely see that there is a wish to grow in India fast, but there's also a wish to grow independent of supply from China. And I'd share a very quick example. We support the Indian research and QC market, and a customer today said, which one of these instruments in your brochure are made in China? Because they're the ones I don't want. And maybe that's a slightly limiting approach, because there will be some technologies, there will be some processes, there are some supplies that are good quality and can come from there. So just a thought there. I think it's onshoring everything has not proved to be a great success in Europe. And maybe there's a hybrid approach as we go forward.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, I think just look into this market. I think it won't let you sleep. It's growing at a pace it has never been. And I just say that the story with storage is like solar, but at 3x speed. What happened in solar, it just happens in storage, but at 3x speed. Of course, India has been doing great. Policies, procedures are in place. Of course, nothing can be perfect. But I think the coming days are very, very essential for this industry to grow at scale if India wants to achieve its targets. So, yeah.
Thank you, Deb. Phoebe.
Oh my God, there's so many thoughts going through my mind. Primarily, if we're talking about cell production, it's going to be a cost question. I think actually we're all unanimous. I think you need to see collaboration, not isolation, when it comes to battery production. The US is a great example. You know, you've got Ford localizing with CATL to produce LFP. You know, they understand where the pedigree is. You can't try and go it alone in this market. So, and that's the same with storage. I think there's a lot of lessons. India's in a perfect place where it's nascent. It can learn from the UKs, the Europes, the USs, and learn some of the lessons where we've struggled. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think one thing I always say is a challenge globally that everybody should be aware of is lithium and battery cell costs are very low right now. And we're very short-termists when we think about green tech. When we look out to the 2030s and our forecast for lithium, it goes up because there is a supply-demand deficit coming. So we need to understand that and prepare for a potential rise in cell costs. And that's something that India is going to have to take into consideration if it's importing, but also if it's making it on site.
I think I have very optimistic goals, but I'm a bit skeptical what we should make in India. Atmanirbhar Bharat should really happen. We should turn India into an export company than an export country than an import country. If this should happen, we want to really concentrate on building capacities in India. So that is what we wish for, and that is what India can also grow as an economy as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have heard many, many different interesting perspectives here on this panel. I really want to thank all of you. Some of the things I took away, I think really looking at our topic of India's path to clean energy, sustainable strategies for boosting the energy storage sector. I think we got some more clarity on sodium and the position of sodium, understanding currently it's not really cost effective, but India has started to invest quite significantly in this topic, which I think has exciting potential. But we also have heard we have to get to this price parity with lithium, again, based on Phoebe's forecast in 2028, when I got it right. And yeah, I think there's some interesting developments we want to keep an eye on. I think we also heard about the importance of realistic goals. I think we have seen other regions where this have been challenging. And then I think we have seen some topics where we have seen India excel and some they have seen more challenges. I think interesting aspects which have been brought up is somewhere it has been excelled is the permitting, which really has allowed to get this quick ramp up now, especially also from installation as well, which again, I think it's something you mentioned really stands out in India compared to other markets. I think also the topic of price parity on two-wheelers and three-wheelers, four-wheelers, where this is something which, again, other regions have really seen the benefits from that, something really to applaud also for the Indian market. I think one topic which also has been brought up, especially on the energy storage aspect, is this topic of how you can use your BESS. Currently, it's a bit more limited in the ways you can make money through BESS. So this topic of value stacking could be something quite attractive to really enable this market to benefit and really be more sustainable going forward. With this, I really want to thank you all for listening. My name was Simon Enke, founder and chair of Battery Associates. Love to also share any insights with you, but I really want to thank all of our panelists for sharing of the insights with all of you today. And again, thanks to Former Markets for hosting this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simon, for concluding this for us. And I would like to thank all the panelists here as well for sharing their views. Those of you who've joined recently, I'm your host, Manu, and I will be here with you today and tomorrow for all the sessions in this hall. And I extend a very warm welcome to you all to the second edition of the Battery Show India 2024 by Informa Markets. The current session, which is going on, has been powered by Battery Associates, and Dr. Simon Enke here is the moderator. And as a token of my appreciation and our appreciation as a team for your inputs and your insights into the market of the energy storage sector and India's path to a cleaner energy sector, I would like to present mementos to each one of you, which I'm sure Dr. Kyle, Dr. Simon, and Mr. Devmalya Sen are already aware of, which we did yesterday. So the new members who've come in and joined us today, I would like our esteemed moderator, Mr. Simon, Dr. Simon Engeke here, to please stand up and present it to them on our behalf. Please, can I request you to please come on the center of the stage so that we can get beautiful photographs. Yeah, she'll come and give it to you. Please be comfortable. So the first panelist that I would like to call upon stage to get felicitated is the lovely Phoebe O'Hara, ladies and gentlemen. A huge round of applause. Thank you so much. And the next and obvious panelist that I would like to call upon stage, who's already ready and there, is Mr. Bharat Venkatesan. Thank you so much, everyone. The entire session was very illuminating, enlightening, and definitely enriched my intellect as a person. Also, one final request, Dr. Simon, as you're aware, we would want a group photograph of everyone on the panel so that we can capture this beautiful memory here and look back at it and smile. So for that, please smile for the camera and stand at the center of the stage.